And so just to give you a bit of a background of what I do, I was originally a graffiti writer. Started painting graffiti at the age of 15 in Dublin. That's where I lived and grew up all my life. I only moved to the States a few years ago and I moved again. And so because I'm in London, I don't really need to explain graffiti or street art because it's so rampant here. And so that's what I did, you know. It's the way I describe graffiti as abstract typography, taking letter forms and skewing them into the way you want in an artistic way. So that's what I did, and I really loved it. I actually became very, very obsessed with it. Like insanely obsessed, where like that's all I did through my teens. This actually pretty much sums up my whole teenage youth, just sitting and doing sketches, smoking joints, drinking beer. There's no girls or anything involved. It was a bit weird for a few years, but you know, we became very, very obsessed with it, and we painted like thousands and thousands of graffiti pieces. Around Dublin, Ireland. As I got a little bit older, I could then start traveling to different places in Europe, like Copenhagen or Berlin, different spots, and you got to know a lot of different European writers, so you go visit them for a weekend and paint and share photos, and I really loved it. Like, it was like one of the, you know, they were the good times for me. Like, I really loved it. I'm still having a great time. But so with that, like, when I started traveling more than to Europe, and so I turned probably 18, and like most of the 18-year-olds are like, fuck this place, you know, fuck Dublin, want to go to Australia, get out of this place. But the more I travelled, the sort of more I realised that how great Dublin was, and how good the people were, and how safe it was, and you know, and I really had a love for it. So I sort of came back and introduced this idea of like love to the city, and my appreciation for my city and the people of the city. And I started just simply writing slogans saying "Maester loves you," and coincidentally at the same time, I got done for graffiti, and I got done really bad, and got a few charges, so I actually couldn't go paint on the streets. So I came up with a thing. I think this is maybe even before street art, but it was where I got stickers and I got them printed, and I just started sticking them all around the city, and it injected like this nice little bit of positivity into the city. And I saw a good sort of reaction with that, because it wasn't for our subculture with the, as I said, the skewed typography. It became very accessible for everyone else to read it and engage that sort of conversation. So I started just doing that and doing posters around the city, different things, sort of taking what I was seeing and just writing it pretty much. You know, I had no agenda, not really knowing what I was doing, and still sort of don't. I just sort of do things, and then it makes sense when you look back a year later. But so just writing words of appreciation, taking notes. Around this time, probably a year later then, I went to go to college, studied fine art, hated it. It wasn't for me, so I left and went back being a chef. And so doing that, sort of always doing graffiti on the side. And, you know, traveling with the sort of Maester Loves You stuff as well. I was sort of traveling to different places, working different projects, trying to fund money for different places. I worked in Nepal, went everywhere writing it. But yeah, so when I left college, went back cooking, and then like most of the heads, you know, I needed to get a job and start paying rent. So I looked at graphic design, you know, because I had a few friends doing it, visual communications. And with that, there was typography. And it really made sense for me because it lended so well to what I'd done before, and I just loved typography. So I just started, merged the two sort of disciplines together, and started to come up with these sort of positive quotes around the city. Because I was able to just bash out walls really easy, it wasn't a problem to me. Like, these were much easier than doing graffiti pieces. And so I worked with like a musician called Damien Dempsey. He was a Dublin musician, you should look him up, but he was very influential for a lot of young teenagers like us at the time. Spoke about our city being good, So I started just writing his lyrics around the city, and it became a project that I met him in the pub, and I just said, I want to write your words on the walls, and that's what it was. So I just started writing these messages around the city, and it caused it really sort of caused a lot of interest in the city and stuff like that, and people questioning, why is this happening? And it was all self-funded, we were just doing it. And the more I sort of painted on the streets doing these pieces, I got to meet a lot of homeless people. And because, like, you know, let's say we came here today, we're coming from A to B, our house to the venue, and then venue to the pub, whatever it is. But so it's a quite transient space, but for the homeless, like, they were hanging out with me all the time because that was their home. The streets were sort of their home. I got to know a lot of them, I got to sort of know their stories and the background. And there's one guy in particular called Stephen that I met, and he was homeless and he was doing heroin, and I sort of helping him, you know, do his gear, because it was doing his gear, like sheltering him from the wind to do his stuff. And he told me a story about, like, he was a manager of Super Quinn, his brother was whatever, brother died, he ended up losing his job. With that, he lost his home, found himself homeless, got in a bit of trouble, ended up in prison. Then when he was in prison, ended up on heroin, and then got released from prison, and that's when I met him. So it became very interesting, like, that whole sort of process. So I then instinctively wanted to then go into prison, and so I went to Mountjoy Prison and St. Pat's Institute for Young Offenders. And I sort of already had a few walls under my belt, so I said it to the guys, and they let me in. I spent a month in with the inmates, working on murals with them, sort of trying to do what I was doing on the street and sort of do it inside the prison as well, and get to learn their stories. Like, and I think for me it was I was trying to educate these guys, and I was like, God, there's more to it, because you can get very conditioned in there, you know, and where they're just, they can't, you know, they're like, this is my life. And I was trying to say, like, Jesus, there's so much more, you know. And I was writing things like this with them, there's friends I've yet to meet. And so that all sort of, we did that, and it all sort of came together. Had all these walls, didn't know what to do with it. And so we then compiled an exhibition. We had an exhibition of all the photography, did some individual pieces. It was all for fundraising. We bought a medical van for Dublin, for the homeless. And so that's still mobile going around the city. I had a video for this, but it was meant to be played at the start, but we didn't play it. So, but yeah, that's like one of the towers, Ballymont Towers in Dublin, and it got knocked down and said, farewell to your stairwell forever. So with that then, I continued just writing and taking notes myself instead of writing these typography pieces around the city. Very, very simple and clean, because as the guys were saying before, we are bombarded by advertising. We see it everywhere. And so you only have this like small window it's a bit like social media. You only got like a small window of time to sort of capture someone's attention. So I wanted to just do stuff that was very just to the point. I didn't even consider it art or graffiti, or it was just writing these statements. So I did a lot of them around Dublin. You're alive, if Ellis once in a lifetime opportunity. Simple messages like this: live in love, don't be afraid. At this time now as well, this is like right when the recession starts hitting Dublin, and everyone's just literally afraid and stuff like that. So I wanted to just project these messages around the city, and I was getting good feedback. And from that, I started really like investigating why I was doing it, and like why the effect it's having on the city. Because previous, when we did graffiti, it was for our little subculture. Like, you know, no one understood it but us, so we just did it ourselves. But then when I started just writing these plain messages, I started noting this relationship between me and the city and the people. So I started looking at that more, and then started moving on to more artwork, because I was, to be honest, I was actually afraid to become an artist, because I was a graffiti writer, and then none of my mates are artists. They're all just normal guys that I went and grew up with and drank with. And so, you know, it was intimidating to be an artist and sort of put all aside. So I think that was a transitional thing for me to go do typography, and then I can move on to being an artist. So I looked at how these big murals I was doing, and how they sort of, the key word is like interrupt, like how they interrupted the landscape. You know, from one day you're going to work every day, and next thing there's this 40-foot mural in front of you, and how that works. So I literally did that. I literally started interrupting landscapes. And with this, I was doing a lot of canvas work as well, and I was doing with my graphic design background, doing very linear, clean graphic work. So I decided to inject that into spaces. So this is just with duct tape and fishing wire, and just when the light was right, I shot it, and it has this sort of optical illusion. I really like the op art, people like Bridget Riley, different people like that. So I started just playing with that, and it was just really rewarding for me, you know. So moved on to then, I found this ribbon when I was in the States, and so I started just going, when I'd go on holidays with my girlfriend for 2 days, we'd go to the Louvre, and then I'd stop and we'd do a little installation of ribbon. I'd just get 2 trees and staple the ribbon, photograph it, and you know, it's just interrupting that landscape, like this normal sort of cliche tourist photo that you'd see. So then I always like working with my hands and being tactile. So I led on to like building bigger pieces. I was like, okay, well, what if I literally interrupt the flow of traffic or do like that? So I built this piece and put it right in the middle of the road and just watched how that dictated people to go around. And, you know, it was all just learning. There was no answer. There was no real agenda why I did it. I just sort of did it. I was just trying to figure out why I was doing it. And it was real fun. It was like great to just build big work and put it in the city. Doing that then, you know, continued on with sort of these old derelict buildings that like become invisible to us because we're so used to seeing them all the time. And like, what if I bring attention to that and interrupt that building again and question what it is? You know, this is a collar hospital in Ireland. You know, it's a very, very sad place, and then become an industrial school. And so there's a lot of like, yeah, you know, it's a lot of history and stories to that. So I just wanted to do something to bring attention to that and maybe open that discussion. And it worked, you know, it was an interesting place to do it. And this is actually a real key moment for me then. This is a few years ago. So probably from now on, it's been in the last probably 3 years. I do have a lot of work, a lot of bad work, but I just put in the good stuff. But so this I got offered to paint, to hide this sort of eyesore in Limerick City. So the railing out the front. And that's what I paint on the railing to sort of to hide the eyesore. And I was like, oh no, this is a great canvas, we'll do this. So I ended up then painting the whole thing. It took a week, and it was in December, it was raining, but we got it done. But like when I say like this is a key moment, it was because when I went to take the final photos, I saw people walk into the space, and it became this three-dimensional, interactive, experiential painting. And I was like, fuck, I'm onto something here, like, you know. And because, as I said, it was all about that engagement with the public in the city, and now I literally have them in the painting, you know, and I found that really intriguing. I was actually saying to my mate, and he was just like, whatever. So I was doing a lot of print work like this, and as you can see, the interaction of colour, the relationship forms, sitting together. And I was like, what if I then took this and elevated it? And so I made three-dimensional versions of these paintings, you know, and would this work? So I started just taking plans that I had, and then started making elevations, and I did it. Then I started, this is the first piece I'd done, it was in Berlin. And you know, it was just a very exciting time for me to do it and build it, and all hand painted it, and just that interaction of people in the space and appreciating it and playing with it, and it became like escapism in some way for me, and also for the people to do it, people in the space to work with. And it was interesting. I actually have a video of us painting it. Hold on. Oh no, I don't. I just let it play. Yeah, they're really big video files, aren't they? No. There we go. So, yeah, that was one video of it. So yeah, I just continued that narrative because it excited me, because really, you know, it's for me, with everything in my life, it's about relationships and good relationships, surrounding yourself with good people, we all know it. So I continued that and played it, and I was like, what if, you know, this is just a quick piece that I've done, it's like, what if people become the work then as well? So I made a piece and then got someone to make clothing for it as well, and it became this playful environment that they could just go and get the photos taken, do selfies and whatnot. This is actually, the guys mentioned that I'd worked on a video with you too. This is just a few slides of it. You actually, you have to like buy it on iTunes or something. I didn't even buy it, I don't have it. But it's, but I just want to show this because it's like a different, so I consider myself a painter and also maybe a builder now, you know. I love woodwork as well. But, you know, you have to be creative in your process as well. I'd hear people sort of ridiculing people, let's say, do stencils or you're not a free-handed painter. Like, you have to be creative in the process to be a creative person as well. So for this, it was light photography. And I found this software that I could use that you could actually run it through spaces and create video pieces. And so that was it. It was just my artwork running around Dublin City, animated, playing with surroundings and stuff like that, and then it just accompanied the music. Then yeah, like I have a piece downstairs that you guys will see if you go at the back, and it's with that ribbon that I showed you before as well. And I was living in the States, and my studio, I lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas, really, really mellow place. I just needed a break from Dublin for a while. Went there, next door there was this florist called Pam, really lovely lady, so I'd have coffees with her, and she was wrapping the flowers one day in this sort of material. I was like, what's that? It's like pretty interesting. So I started using it then to interrupt these landscapes, as I said, and I didn't show other pieces. I've done a lot of them, but I first started as in Amsterdam, and I literally closed off a street with the ribbon. I just went around the 2 traffic lights and then just filmed the cars stopping and not being able to get through and stuff like that. So I developed that, and then one day I was in the studio and realised I bought a black light bulb, and I realised this stuff is UV. So then, same thing, it's just like that big piece you saw in Berlin. There's actually a structure there to it, so you can go around and integrate yourself with the work, and you know, it needs to be playful as well. So that was really enjoyable. I've done a few of these primarily around Germany, in different places. With that as well, I just want to show different mediums. As I said, this was just vinyl. This was for celebrating Irish Design 2015 last year, and luckily I got chosen, plus another 2 other artists, to just do work. And then I was playing on the idea of like being a graffiti writer, and you want to paint your train, and the train goes around the city. I was just like, well, I'll just do top to bottom bus, and I'll just vinyl it, and it's just going to be driving around the city. So it's like self-promotion in some way, but it's just that mentality of being a graffiti writer. And the colours that I use as well, and all this graphic language, is to be bold and strong and to be impactful and see your name, but also to contrast its environment. And so it's a lot of purposes to why I do this minimalistic work. So I also work with brands, shoot me now, but I gotta pay my fucking rent, and I get it. But it's about choosing the right people to work with, and I know that from experience. I've made a lot of bad decisions, worked with a lot of terrible people, and luckily I'm in a position now where I can choose, okay, is this going to be good for me or not? And I can say no, and it's down to respect for one another. Like, if a brand doesn't respect you, or a private person who wants you to commission for their house and they start dictating what they want, well, then that's not respect. You know, they're employing you to do your job, and you see your portfolio, and that's it. So luckily, this is a shop called Brown Thomas. It's on the main street in Dublin, and main shopping street. And years ago, it used to be called Switzer's, and it was very famous for us kids because you used to go in before Christmas, and they'd these elaborate Christmas windows. And you'd go in, and you'd walk in with your ma, and you'd have your lunch in the day. And I'm looking at you, Jen, when I'm talking like this, because you did it too. And you'd spend the day looking at the windows, you know, it was deadly. So then they got on to me, it was like, do you want to do our windows? Take over, do the whole thing. I was just like, and that just triggered in my mind. I was like, that was just primary reason why I want to do it, to be able to do the windows and then go down Grafton Street with my ma, go for lunch, and then show her the windows. So, you know, it's, you know, we're talking outside. It's muddy water, like the discussion of money, and like all money comes from somewhere as well, so I'm not even going to fucking get into it. Like, but this is an enjoyable experience anyway for me. So yeah, like you know, that I did that piece for pretty much aesthetics. You know, they wanted it, and I was getting a big name in Dublin, and so we did it, and it was great. So then I was still living at the States at this time, and still just doing outdoor pieces and making sort of smaller ones like this sometimes, and it was great just this interaction. I always think when you get the approval of kids, like running around and jumping your piece, it's worked. Like, you know, it's doing its job, because we're just fucking so consumed with being so self-conscious now that we'll just stand there and just take a photo of it and not do anything, you know. So it was quite, it needs to be playful, you know, and this is a good reaction that I got from it. Project then, probably 18 months ago, I got an email. I was like, do you want to come to Las Vegas to paint a motel in downtown? And I was like, obviously it was a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, I'll come. And it was sort of still in, you know, it's a disused place and want to bring attention to it. So that's what we did. I went, painted it, and it was tough work, but it got it done, and, you know, it did its job, and it was just a really memorable thing. And I'm lucky that I get to do all this. I get to travel around the world, get to do what I want to do, and it seems that people appreciate it because they still ask me to do it. So, you know, and I was just playing with, like, just going to scrapyard and getting a truck and then painting it, and there's a lot of great photos that I don't have of this, but there's a real strange sense of scale, and it's the same. It goes right back to op art, where it's an illusion. So, you know, when you paint a truck like that and it looks like a little Tonka toy, and then there's people walking around, it's quite interesting to watch. I still do occasionally paint walls, any opportunity I get, and we mentioned Conor Harrington earlier. He's a fellow Irishman, and he lives here as well. So we were in the States. I said, do you want to come paint the wall? And we did that, and I don't know, this is a video for something. Anyway, I'll go back to that video. I don't know what it is. And so, yeah, we just collaborate on two different styles together and see how those aesthetically work. And, you know, I've collaborated with some people before, and it's never worked because you're just doing it to collaborate, and it's not, like, you know, me and him are mates, and we became good friends, and had a little routine. We'd have breakfast together, we go to the gym, and then we go paint all day, and we go have a beer, and it's like painting's the one aspect of it, but it's that whole social part and getting to know someone even better. You know, it's really about making memories for me, as cheesy as that sounds, but yeah, you want to look back and go, look what your dad did, you know, this is what he did. I actually just want to see this video, so I don't know what it is. It takes 5 seconds, the guy said, because, oh yeah. So, I'll just let it play. So yeah, that was I done that because it was like I wanted to look at the norm, and I came up with this idea of hyper-reality, and you know, like Disneyland, where everything's real, but it's portrayed as real, but not real. It's fake, and so I just wanted to play with that, and I was like, what's the most normal environment we get? It's a house, and so that's what I did. I just made this normal environment, and then we made a little video with Daria as well. So another collaboration with Insa, he's from here as well, from London, and I just put in those few slides to show about collaboration. Another great guy that I love did this in Copenhagen, and he came up with this amazing idea called graffiti, where you then, just like a GIF file, you paint the wall 4 times. So I did it with my artwork, he showed me the process, and then it results in this. So, you know, it's just so creative. I loved it when we did that, and because I'm very still tactile, I'm very, what's the word, like analog in some way. I still want to make stuff, like even though the YouTube video, you could just do that, I'm sure, all in After Effects. I'm still out in the street every night, like you have to do 1 step, 2 steps, you know, to get the 1 second shot. And so with that, even though you could make that, I'm sure we still painted it. And so, you know, I think that's really important as well, because I'm looking at feeds myself. I'm like, I don't even know how that's out. It's just done Photoshop, you know. But, so yeah, I moved over here in April because I had a show with Lazarides Gallery, and then when I moved over, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to just stay here. It's pretty nice. So I just stayed here, did the work, and it was just sort of showing you some canvas work. And it's actually, I went very abstract without realizing it, but it's I was trying to communicate what I'm doing outdoors in terms of like people integrating with the work. So it's just looking at human forms and how they integrate with the work, and color. You know, color theory is very important to me, and the relationships of color, form, body forms. And so I was doing pieces like that, doing some woodwork still in the studio, and the show went really well. I was super happy with it. Well, they were too. I'm represented by 2 galleries, print galleries, one in Ireland and one in the States. One being Tandem Press in the States. And I just put this in to show you that, like, we are, I think there's like this new generation of us now where we're like cross-disciplinary. You don't need to just be a photographer. You don't need to be just a painter or graffiti. Like, lend your hand to everything, you know, just do it and learn. So I do fine art prints as well, and a lot of learning, but it's still, you know, it's still enjoyable because I don't have a long attention span. I do get bored quickly. Oh, here's the video then. So the other gallery I work with is in Dublin, and I'm working on a show with them for November, a solo show. And they're very, very traditional in the printmaking. So we just compiled a little video because people don't understand the actual process that's gone into it. So, sorry, it's going to take a few seconds. So yeah, you can see there sort of how my process as well. I work with paper, like I do pencil drawings, but my mind only works in color blocks and the relationship of color. So I need to like literally buy stocks of color and paper and cut it out and place it, and allows you to. But anyway, that's my process. So this is a great opportunity in Sydney. I got to go over and work with Sydney Festival. So every year they do they invited an artist and they invited me over, and it was great, you know. If we talk about money again, like I don't have 250 G's to build this shit, so if someone else can pay for it, that's great, and everyone still gets to enjoy it. So yeah, that was it. It was in the middle of Hyde Park, and we built it. We had to it was quite hard because, like as you can see here, I had to build it all modular and design it modular because we had to do it in a warehouse and then separate it and then dismantle it and then bring it on location. So I used 40-foot containers as the core structure, and then built it all together. And it has a little bit of like, I think in the back of my mind, like a very loose thought of MC Escher and just that aesthetic, you know, because I needed stairs. I think that was it. So, you know, that was a key photo for me because it's like, there I am, I got a painting and there's people literally integrating with it, you know, and it's been the narrative, I think, for most of my work since. And when I was there as well, as I like to do, I like to try and take over as many sort of things as I can. So I did a big stage and I made animated graphics for it that worked with it. The Lord Mayor heard I was in town, so she asked me to do a party, her New Year's Eve party. So we designed a stage for her as well, which was great. Got to be there for the fireworks, and you know, it was just, yeah, that was a great thing. It was just 6 weeks, and I just went there and worked my ass off, and sort of did it as much as I could. Another piece here in Palais de Tokyo last year. I went swimming in a cave in Greece and took photos. And then I just wanted to selfishly share that experience with people, so I did my interpretation of it. And then the very end was sort of like a rock pool. I got the photo second, so we just built it pretty much, and just a playful experience. Then in Dublin, just recently I worked on another piece. It was my first, because I'd done so many around the world, that it was great to get the opportunity to actually come back to Dublin and build my first one, and got to work with a lot of crazy Dublin guys that I know. And so it was a great experience, and that was right in the heart of the city. And well, there was reasons behind it. I don't need to get into the aesthetics of why I did it, but it was great, and it worked out. And inside, then it was near Halloween, so I wanted it to be a bit like a haunted house. And I actually wanted it to look like this perfect utopia, a bit like Dublin, but then when you get there, structurally it's a bit unsound. So when we went inside, it was this sort of massive poles and UV and strobe lights and sound. And, it was successful, it was great. Then, you know, a bit like all my other peers that I look back on, a lot of them seem to, like, some great fine artists seem to have dabbled in stage design and set design. So I lent my hand to that once or twice, and completely different way of working, but also good learning. I did that was for the Web Summit, this big web conference. This was just last year as well, actually. It was a really busy year. And you know, it did its job. The guys are happy, and I loved it. I loved seeing it all come together, especially when you're just designing on the computer and then you're seeing it being built. It wasn't painted; it was used with different materials. Then I do love architecture, and got an opportunity again. They were like, "We want you to do an interactive piece at this festival," and I was just like, "Well, I want to. What are the key things for me when I'm at a festival? I want to stay dry. I want to be able to drink beers somewhere and be able to sit down." So I thought of like bringing this house party to the festival. So I designed a house, and then we built it. And it was the same sort of thing. It had to be temporary. I had to design in a certain way that was only up for 3 days. And we did it. It was great. And had everything. It was full experiential. Like, you know, it got so sort of far removed from art that it was like, it was literally, I just built a house, you know, and, but it was a great experience, and even I still consider it an art piece. People would probably just look at it as a house, which I guess it was. Did bedrooms, kitchens, living room, and I sort of, I curated the whole experience into the music, the food, the activities that were in it, and you know, it was just a fun time. Just recently then, when I moved over to London, painted this in Black Horse in East 17 with the guys. That was great. They were just on it. They just knocked it out of the park with me, and we just painted it over a few days. And it was a funny interaction. Like in Dublin, people just walk past you, but in London, you just fucking voice your opinion very much, like about what we do. You know, it's like, I fucking hate pink, and I was just like, oh god, give me a minute. Like, or someone's like, I loved the graffiti beforehand. I was like, yeah, but you probably loved the blank wall before that. But it was a good time, and working with great guys. And so that was my first piece since I moved here. I just did that, and I'll just leave. I'm conscious of time, so I'll just leave you with this one. It's a piece I did in Montreal just a few weeks ago. I just got back, maybe 3 weeks ago. I was at a metro station, and they asked me. I was working with Mural Fest there. There's a lot of street artists go, and I said, yeah, I'll do it, and just composed this sort of piece where we just built it all out of wood in another space, and then repositioned it. And the reason I was excited to do it, I was like, because I was like, oh, a metro station, does it still work within the parameters of what I want to do? But it was that interaction, like people are still going into the space and it's still functional, and and that was it. That was the reason I did it. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got, and thanks for listening to me.